Cornish Mutual, farming insurance experts.
Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of Farming Focus, brought to you by Cornish Mutual. I'm your host, Peter Green, and if you listened to the main episode on farm technology, you'll know that things are moving fast, but there are real marginal gains to benefit our businesses if we get involved with agri-tech. But where do we start if you're not quite ready for those big investments or the complex systems? In this bonus, I'm back with Matt Dobbs and Adam Short to talk about practical first steps, the simple tools and technologies that can really deliver value without overloading our time, our budget, or our patience. So, Matt, I'll come to you first. For a farmer who's maybe new to digital tools, what's one small piece of tech that you'd recommend starting with that's something low cost, perhaps, or easy to use?
Absolutely. So I think to start off with, look at technologies that are going to help reduce your labor that's required on farm. None of us like to do boring or repetitive tasks. And actually, sometimes our focus, for example, my skill set around animal health should be on making sure that animals remain healthy. So look at technologies that might remove some of those dull observational studies that might need to be done. So, for example, estrus detection aids. I'm a big believer that the collar estrus detection aids have done a phenomenal job at not only becoming more accurate in helping us to improve fertility rates, but also taking away that dullness of observing animals for estrus. The same is now happening for lameness and mobility issues. Camera systems are taking away the drudgery of trying to identify which cows are lame and need to be presented to the hoof trimmer, and allowing more of the focus to be going onto the treatment and less on the identification of the problem in the first place.
Okay, so things like that can really help. I know it's a tiny thing, but I've got some smart plugs which I use for my electric fences, and when I'm half a mile away from the Energizer, just being able to go onto my phone to an app and just click off, move the fence, and click on again, check the fence. Yep, we're away. That's just such a it's been such a game changer for me, and it costs just a few pounds. So yeah, it can be a tiny change. You spoke in the main episode last week about marginal gains, and those sorts of things can really make a difference. So Adam, coming to you, is there a mobile app or platform that you think is underused but could be really useful?
Yeah, I think so. I've got to be a little bit careful here with the AHDB hat on not to back a single commercial thing. So I'll try and hedge a little bit. But again, coming back to the farm management software example, which we still need better adoption of in beef and lamb sectors, particularly. There's some really good examples of that with really clear use cases where they're integrating with the wand for scanning the ear tags, where they're integrated with the weigh scales. Obviously some big ones like HerdWatch, AgriWeb, and the people at iLivestock have spent a very long time on that hardware component. They've developed this copyrighted sort of Bluetooth integration module for weigh bridges and for wands, and any of that sort of stuff. It's a really low cost, I would suggest, in the grand scheme of things, way of bringing some of that, quite quick value to your business. You've only got to use that stuff for 12 months to be able to start getting some actionable insights out of it. I know there's some farmers who are way ahead of that already, but there's certainly a good proportion who I think would really benefit from that sort of stuff still.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that's definitely something which was born out. I bought a weigh cell for my very small herd of cattle probably 10 years ago, and I was thinking at the time, gosh, it's a reasonably big expense considering I've got such a small herd. But actually, we were spotting people. We were spotting cows. They're not people; they're cattle. We were spotting cattle that really weren't thriving quite as they might, just because we were weighing them, and that gave us a return probably within a year on a really small herd. So I can absolutely echo what you've just said there. How do farmers cut through the noise, though? I mean, I've been recommended 4 different mapping tools for my farm by different friends who are using different things. I'm particularly interested in ones that can help with my rotational grazing, perhaps improving my utilisation of grass. But what's the best way to work out which one I should use? Is it to try them on for size? Is it to just go and see somebody else using them? What would you recommend? Matt, I'll maybe come to you first.
Yeah, absolutely. So picking up on the previous point in association with that, my belief is that some companies see that there is commercial advantage in not sharing their data, retaining it for themselves in the hope that they're going to get an increased customer because of that. But I would actually argue the opposite. You should be backing and supporting companies that see the benefit in sharing their data, that they have enough IP or enough confidence that their technology is going to be beneficial and still share that data. An open access, if you like, approach, because that is what benefits the producer mostly. So have a look at the attitude, the sort of the culture behind the technology, and are they interested in sharing with others and making sure that the data is available on whatever platform you as a producer want to consume it, or are they really insulated and don't want to share their data, and they struggle, for example, for integrating with your farm management system or with other technologies that are available? So the first thing is, what's their attitude to sharing data, and secondly, to your point, go and visit somebody that's maybe already got this technology, or maybe these technologies already exist in a trial herd, one of the agri-tech centres, or at one of the agricultural colleges. Technologies that aren't afraid of their USP and their benefit are very often on those types of establishments, and it's in those places you can go and see these technologies and experience them firsthand and work out how they might be applicable for you and your farming enterprise.
That's really interesting. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but am I right in saying that usability and ease of use can sometimes be a proxy for the openness of the business, and maybe how likely they are to be open to developments in future? Is that fair?
That's absolutely fair, and I think I can say this coming as a CEO and a founder of my own technology business. They're not all perfect to start off with. So don't expect suddenly a new technology to be, making you a cup of tea in the morning as well as being able to milk the cows. They can't do everything all at once. And inevitably, especially those that are based on subjective measures, you may not necessarily always agree with the outcomes that they're producing. But what's really important is what's the usability and the attitude, and where's the progression in that technology likely to end up. And if you back the right one, if you can foresee that what they're trying to achieve, that company's trying to achieve, is going to be beneficial for the future, it's likely that they're the right horse to back here and now.
Brilliant. Thank you. So Adam, coming to you, we talked about the need to try things and to see things, but as someone who in a past life was having to do user acceptance testing, and with your experience, could you just talk to us about how we might try things, how we might test things, what we might look to do to put things through their paces?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a go. I mean, really one of FA Matt's points there about the openness, the willingness to share data. I think that is a critical factor. I mean, this probably is the question for which the answer is getting out a little bit more. So, there are hundreds of demos of these things up and down the country all the time, of these new tech solutions. So getting out there and getting hands on, whether that be at from an HDB perspective, sort of strategic farm gatherings and events, or at Groundswell at the Royal Welsh where I was last week, those sorts of places, you can get some hands-on experience with these kit. There's also some probing questions that you could start to get yourself clued up on. This comes back to the skills point that we made in the previous episode, that there are things in here about formats of data. What is interoperability between some of these systems? Can you it's not gonna work for every farmer, but can you gen yourself up on the basics of the interoperability? If you want to invest in a bit of tech and they say, well, you can download a CSV file of your data if you want, and you can do whatever you want with it, that's not going to be as useful going forwards as we can support the latest data sharing formats that's compatible with all these other systems, and we've tested that. There are some probing questions you could start to ask, but I do think getting off farm is key for this stuff.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Thank you. So when you talk about interoperability, you're talking about different programs or applications talking to one another. So I use Xero accounting software. It's making sure that, for example, Xero can work and talk to another application without needing me to feed that information in manually. Is that fair?
100%, yeah. And we've got loads. I mean, livestock farmers will be familiar with like the early ones where you couldn't get any data out of them initially, and then all you could do was download your data, and then you had to transfer it to your PC, and then you had to import it into the other app, and it's all clunky and horrible. And do reflect a little bit on Matt's point about startups not being perfect and tech companies not being perfect, and I've definitely been there. But we do need to start looking at that interoperability of the systems that we're investing in.
Yeah, great stuff. My producer is keen that I make sure that we point out that any brand names or programs mentioned here today are definitely not the only ones available on the market. I will just finish up by asking one final question. Matt, to you, if there's one mindset shift that can really help farmers to move on, we talked about marginal gains in the main episode last week, what can make them more confident with using tech?
The mindset shift has to be early adoption. And you can only adopt early if you have some sort of insight and some sort of knowledge. So to Adam's point, you've got to become educated in this. You've got to take note of the changes that are happening in the industry, of the new products that are becoming available. Make great use. I don't know of a country that does it as well as we do. Great use of the open farm system, the demonstration farms that are available, our ability to communicate with each other and see each other as peers rather than competitors in our agricultural space is a real benefit of UK agriculture. So make use of that. While we have some other challenges around our agricultural industry, our ability to cooperate is certainly not one of them. So we need to make the most of that so that we can then benefit from early adoption of these technologies. The UK is a world leader in the development of agri-tech solutions. We as an industry must also be a world leader in adoption of these technologies as well.
Fantastic. What a positive note to finish on. We need to be world leaders at being early adopters. There's food for thought. Great stuff. I have so enjoyed my conversation this afternoon with Matthew Dobbs and Adam Short. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to continuing the conversation.
Cornish Mutual, farming insurance experts.
Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of Farming Focus. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so that you don't miss any episodes in the series.